Hello, you are listening to From McClay to Zama. I'm your host, Karen Miller. This podcast is about the adventures of two women from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, who worked for the U.S. Army at Camp Zama, Japan, from 1953 to 1955. Their stories are told through hundreds of letters written home. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 21, Letters 57 and 58. Before we get started, I need to warn you that there's some adult content here that you might want to consider before listening to. Nothing really graphic, just unpleasant. These letters really threw me for a loop. So let me just tell you, the Season 1 letters had been read and transcribed, before I started the podcast. I've read some letters randomly that came later, but I never expected too much drama, so I didn't think it was important to read and transcribe them all before I got started. Frankly, reading the letters usually gives me the warm fuzzies, fond memories of my family. Not this time. So when I began typing letter 57, I was a bit shocked that Peg drops the news that she and her sister witnessed a full striptease at the floor show of a party. What in the world was she thinking telling this to her extremely straight-laced parents? No mention of this event, by the way, from Bernice, who I'm thinking had more sense. Innocently, I pressed on to letter 58. A murder? A red-haired American child? The daughter of someone in the letters was murdered? And clearly, the only reason that information is relayed to their parents is because the murder was big news in Harrisburg newspapers, as the murder just happened to be from 3 hours away in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania. So they didn't tell their parents until their mother sent them a clipping about the murder. Here we go. Letter 57 from Peg, written the 29th of November, 1953. Dear Mother and Daddy, Bern and I walked through Zama town today, and we had a nice walk. It's not too cold. In fact, I wore a spring coat. First of all, I'll tell you about Thanksgiving, and then I'll tell you about our walk today. Red Dog and I went into Tokyo to see a football game between the Army and the Air Force. The Army won 28-0. The game wasn't too interesting, but it was for the Boy and Girl Scouts. At halftime, the American Scouts lined up on the 50-yard line, and the Japanese Scouts lined up on the other side. The Americans were just like the kids back home, but the Japanese were the cutest little things. They seemed a lot younger than our Cubs and Brownies, but I guess it's because they're just smaller. They had to march on and off the field, and those kids really know how to march. Each side had their national flag, and the Army played both national anthems. It was very interesting. Then he and I came back to Yokohama and ate a turkey dinner at the Golden Dragon. It was lousy. Gad, how I could have gone for one of your drumsticks. Wednesday at work, I was in the ladies' room, and one of the Japanese girls who works in the section was there too. She commented on it being a holiday the next day, and she wanted to know how we celebrated Thanksgiving back in the States. Well, that's all I needed. I told her about the Penn-Harris football game, how the whole family gathers together. But the thing that impressed her the most was how much the turkey cost and where did you buy it. She also wanted to know if we celebrated Thanksgiving Eve like we do Christmas Eve. I enjoyed the chance to talk to her and explain it all. Zama town is just a short piece from camp, so we walked down there this afternoon and took some more pictures. We went off the main road and walked through a side street. It's harvest time now, and most of the farmers are threshing their rice and drying their radishes. It's unbelievable these people can and do so much of their work with their bare hands. Bern got a picture of rice drying on racks, which will show you how much better than I can explain it. Then they do all the threshing by hand, and they put the rice on mats to dry in the sun. She also took some pictures of children, for which I gave them chewing gum. They thought that was real grand. We bought some tabby socks, which are made out of velvet, and they have a place for the big toe to fit, and they fit tight around the ankle. They're to be worn with the Zori sandals that we both just love. Vi got back from Hong Kong yesterday with some lovely things that she bought. Now we have the bug to go too. She bought linens, jewelry, and a mandarin coat and various other things that I'm real impressed with. We're going to try to save money to go as long as we're in this neck of the woods. Now, we also have the bug to come home by way of the Panama Canal. There's a Norwegian line that carries about 12 passengers on a freighter, and it stops in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and in Cristobal in Panama. Then it goes through the canal and docks in New York. I don't think it's much more expensive to come home that way because we'll have pretty much stuff to bring along with us, and it won't be as expensive to ship it from New York as it would be from the West Coast. This is all in the planning stage, however, so don't take too much stock in it, as we may change our minds 50 times between now and then. The only bad feature is that it takes 30 days, and we can't quite see ourselves on board ship for that long. We got a card from Pete on Friday telling us about the phone call. We think it's wonderful. Vi is planning to spend the weekend at Fuji View Hotel, and Bern is going to write to Pete and give her the telephone number of the hotel so she can have your operator place the call to there. Won't it be fun? We're both excited as can be about it. If you call between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. on December 24th, it will be between 9 and 12 on December 25th over here. There are 5 of us going to the hotel, and we're making plans now as to what we're going to do. Maybe it won't be so bad after all. One of the things Vi brought back with her is a Chinese dress that she had made for her sister. When we were looking at her stuff today, she asked me to try it on. I never thought I could fit into it or that it would be right on me because it's so slim and straight. But they both raved over it so much and said I looked so good in it that I'm going to have one made for the holidays. There's a Chinese tailor in Yokohama, and I'm going to have it made out of some kind of fancy brocade so I can wear it as an evening gown. I'm really excited about that, too. All of our Christmas packages will be delivered at work, so I've invited Jeanette to spend the night here at Zama when we decide to open our packages from home. We're going to do it sometime the week of Christmas because we can't possibly take all those things away with us. We'll still open the boxes when we get them and see that everything is okay, but we won't open the presentos until the party. Sounds like fun, doesn't it? A few weeks ago, Bern and I met some Marines in at the 45, and Friday night they had a party. The officers and enlisted men of the medical group. Bern and I were specifically asked to attend when they called Zama and wanted girls to go to the party. So how could we refuse? It was held in a dive in Haramachida, not too far from Zama. They brought their own steaks and other food, so we had a fine time. Now this will shock you. The main attraction in the floor show was a striptease act, and they went down to the bare skin. Frankly, no one was too impressed, not even the fellas, unless they were on their good behavior because American girls were there. After the orchestra quit playing, we sang, and loudmouth Peggy-san led the singing. One of the fellas had a ukulele. Took-a-san fun. The job is still pretty dull, but I manage. By the way, another girl got Toddy's GS5, and I'm real peeved about it. So from now on, I'm not doing anything for anybody of my own free will. I'll do what's expected of me, and that's all. No more volunteering for anything. But I don't think about work except when I'm there, so I'll just forget about it for now. We're going to go eat in the snack bar. We'll get a meal, but it won't be too good. Oh well, I'll make up for it when I come home. Don't forget to tie a red ribbon on Blondie on Christmas. How she hates them. Thanks for the letter, John, even if you did bawl me out. Is this one any better? Well, we ate and gabbed with Vi and Obi, and now Bern is in here reading, and she wanted to read the letter I just wrote to you, and she thinks my handwriting is horrible. I'm writing this propped up in bed because my desk is just loaded with dirty dishes from breakfast and various other items. You would never believe that neat, crazy, clean Peg would ever turn into such a terrible housekeeper. I'll tell you, I'm completely spoiled by Yamanuchi. My room can look as though I'm either moving in or moving out, and when I get home from work, everything is just in its exact place and neat as a pin. She's a doll. I just read over your last letter, and now I'll comment on a few things. We know definitely of 2 girls who have gotten RIF'd, but I don't know any more than that. However, things are still pretty tight, and from what you said about jobs or business back home, I guess we should be pretty glad we've got the jobs we do. Oh, no, not that. Frankly, it's the general consensus of opinion that for being headquarters, AFFE is pretty well disorganized. I know of only one person who has said she likes her job. Everyone else feels as we do, that it's a means to an end. And that's fine about the $70. I only wish that more was going into the bank, but I just can't afford more. I'll probably have to draw money from my account at Camp Curtin to come home, but being flat broke doesn't bother me in the least. I've made up my mind that I'm not going to sacrifice trips and buying things just for a fat bank account, because money doesn't mean that much to me. Mother dear, we are allowed to wear slacks around. Bern is getting her shantung dress made now, and she has her first fitting tomorrow. Well, I guess I'm all gabbed out for this time. Tell everyone I said hello, and I can't wait to talk to them on Christmas. Viv is coming down with a cold, so I must go and see if she needs anything. Change of climate, I guess. Love again, me. Letter 58 from Peg, written November 30th, 1953. Dear Mother and Daddy, I just read your letter about the clipping with the Rothschild girl being strangled. Bern and I were talking in my room last night. That's when I wrote you the letter you probably received a day or two ago. And I asked Bern if I should write anything to you about the murder. You see, they found the killer, and it was an Army Master Sergeant who is ward master at the 8167th Hospital, which is close to Zama. Sagamihara is the housing area between Zama and the hospital. We've had big write-ups in the Nippon Times and the Stars and Stripes about the case, and the news broke Saturday night that the sergeant finally confessed to the crime. It was my personal opinion all along that it was a GI who did it, and not a Japanese person. Many people scoffed at me, and they said they were sure it was a Japanese, but I was finally proved right. As far as I'm concerned, I trust the Japanese any time sooner than I would another American. Yesterday, we were talking to Mrs. Davis, a DAC who's been here about 6 years, about the case, and she said that at one time they were disturbed by people stealing things from the billets. She said 9 times out of 10, it was proven that the stealing was done by Americans. I know you must be pretty upset about the murder, and you have reason to be. It was a terrible tragedy. Bern and I felt particularly bad about it because, do you remember? Colonel Rothschild was the man who took Bern and I into Tokyo one Saturday in a staff car, and he is a very nice person. The write-up in the Stars and Stripes last night said that he and his wife bear no personal animosity toward the sergeant, and they realize that he is a sick man in need of treatment. By the way, his name is Sergeant Schick, and he's from Cannonsburg, Pennsylvania. So I imagine the Harrisburg papers will really go hog wild over this. Just try not to worry so much, though, about us. We are careful, and we don't do much traveling by ourselves. We have said many times that the Americans are less to be trusted than the Japanese. One night, coming home on the bus, some GIs started acting up and had one girl in tears. So from then on, neither one of us goes away at night by ourselves. There was a notice in the Daily Bulletin the other day that female personnel are forbidden to travel at night unless escorted or in groups. And we know enough about Army rules and regulations to know that it means us. I just don't know what more to say to put your minds at ease because I know that you'll worry anyhow. Just be assured, though, that we are careful and we aren't youngsters. Must get to work. Love, Peck. And here's the article that was in the paper. Army Sergeant admits attack on Susan Rothschild. The Army announced today that a U.S. Army Sergeant confessed under questioning to the brutal strangulation slaying of 9-year-old Susan Rothschild. A flash announcement by the Army at 1:30 a.m. announced that Master Sergeant Maurice L. Schick, 29, hometown not immediately available, Chief Ward Master of the 8169th U.S. Army Hospital at Camp Zama, confessed to the murder late last night. The body of the half-nude girl was found by her father partially submerged in a moat of the housing area in which they lived. Schick, his young wife, and 2 small adopted Japanese girls live in the same housing area in which the murder was committed. The Army said Schick volunteered to confess after intensive questioning by military police criminal investigators. The young Rothschild died of strangulation at 6 p.m. last Saturday. An intensive manhunt had been underway by U.S. Army and Japanese police investigators since the crime a week ago. Schick told Army authorities that he had no intention of rape and did not plan the murder prior to meeting the slain girl in the wooded area in the Sagamihara housing area. The Army stated Schick's motive and factual recollection of the events leading up to and after the murder were not released by the Army pending further use in finalizing the case. The surprise confession of Sergeant Schick ended one of the biggest manhunts conducted by the U.S. Army in Japan. An official Army spokesman said every military policeman off duty had been pressed into the service and that squad patrols had been tripled or quadrupled. The only flimsy clues to the murder had been some hair found on the Rothschild girl's body, which were not her own, as well as some scratches and bruises on her neck. Little Susan was found face down in the drainage moat by her father only minutes, according to the autopsy, after she had been strangled. So here's another one, where it just says that he confessed, and it points him out as being from Cannonsburg, Pennsylvania. So, of course, I began to Google, and I have to say I was even more shocked at the rest of the story. I wonder if Barney and Peg kept up with this and know how it turned out. Of course, they never mentioned it all to me. I've now read several newspaper accounts, and I came across a podcast about it. It's called the Prison City Murders Podcast, and it's Case 12, and it focuses on this, and there's a lot more to be told. It's well worth listening to, but I was not thrilled about one part where the host postulated that the father might have done the crime. Anyway, and there's a possibility he was tortured into confessing, but then he also confessed to other murders. So, Anyway, in 1960, President Eisenhower commuted the death sentence to life in prison for him. There are appeals, however, and weirdly, in my opinion, his sentence is commuted by Gerald Ford in 1976. He's released. He marries again in 1980 and lives out the remainder of his life as a free man in Palm Beach, Florida. He died in 2004, having never claimed innocence for the crime. In fact, during interrogations in Japan, he confessed to additional murders while stationed in Europe, and I don't think he was ever prosecuted or even investigated for them. The Rothschilds also were in the news again, unfortunately. Jacquard Rothschild retired as a brigadier general. He had been a professor of chemistry at his alma mater, West Point, and in 1990, he and his wife Phyllis committed double suicide in a Holiday Inn where they lived in Phoenix, Arizona. They were 82 and 77, respectively. I have included a link to a newspaper article on them on the website. Rothschild being a pretty famous name, I wondered if he was related to the European banking family. There's no link there that I could find. His parents, Julius and Effie Rothschild, were Eastern European Jews who emigrated to the U.S., and Jack was born in Ohio in 1907. Coincidentally, Ford also pardoned Tokyo Rose before leaving office. If you don't know who Tokyo Rose was, you should find out. In the next episode of the podcast, there's going to be some letters that I found from Helen and John, their parents, written to Bernice. I thought it would make a nice change of pace for everyone. And it was interesting because while I was very close to Helen, I never got to meet John, and I felt like this letter helped me know him a little bit better. I'll see you next week. I hope you're enjoying the podcast, and if you are, please subscribe in Spotify. On Apple Podcasts, hit the plus button in the top right-hand corner and rate. This will help my listeners find my podcast more easily. You can access the show's website at www.FromMcClay2Zama.com, where I've posted photos and links from the episodes. The podcast is now available on iHeartRadio, Pandora, Patreon, and Amazon as well. New episodes will be available each Friday morning. The letters were written by my aunts Bern and Peg, transcribed by me. I write and record the show and have created the artwork and original music. Our producer is Zeke, our sound engineer is intern Sylvie, and the security is provided by intern Frey. Thanks to my great-grandparents, John and Helen, who loved us all and thought it was a good idea to save the letters. All rights reserved, 2024.